The controversy over the name of the country, India, or Bharat as we know, led to a controversy. The controversy was because on an official notepad, invitation, instead of the President of India, President of Bharat was written. On this issue, I am joined by Surya Prakash ji, Vice Chairman, Executive Council, Prime Minister's Memorial and Library. Sir, thank you very much for joining me on News9.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'll come to the point.
Yeah.
Necessary?
Yes, in a sense, it is necessary, it is inevitable actually. If you go back, this controversy ought to have been settled in 1949, when Article 1, Bracket 1 had to be incorporated in the Constitution and the debate took place in the Constituent Assembly. In my view, this matter ought to have been settled that day. I have gone through the Constituent Assembly debates and I must tell you, those who are objecting to the name Bharat, they must study the Constituent Assembly debates, because there is not a single speaker there who spoke in defense of India as the name of the country. All those who spoke, and most of them were from the Congress party, freedom fighters who have spent long years in jail, they said the name of the country ought to be Bharat. Secondly, the draft said India, that is Bharat. So several congressmen said, why don't you just turn it around? Like Kamalapati Tripathi, you know, a highly respected leader of the Congress party in those days and later, who was executive president of the Congress. Later I will read out some excerpts from his speech in the Constituent Assembly. He said, India, that is Bharat, why don't you just flip it? Bharat, that is India. In fact, I think it was H.V. Kamath who moved a resolution and said, Bharat, known in the English language as India. Because he took the example of Ireland. In the Irish constitution, they said, name of the country is Eire, E-I-R-E, known in the English language as Ireland. So he said, why don't we adopt that? So if you go to the Constituent Assembly debates, and that is the root, that is the source of this discussion as to what should be the name of this country. In my view, there was overwhelming opinion in that assembly that the name of the country should be Bharat for two reasons. All of them repeat this. Bharat, it gives us our civilizational connect, whereas India is a popular name. It's a name given to us by our land, by foreigners, the Iranians, the Persians, later the British. It came from Indus, the river Indus, and then so on and so forth, and it became India. This is a name given to us by foreigners, whereas our own civilizational identity is Bharat, our cultural identity is Bharat.
But in Constituent Assembly, there was a debate. Yes. I think there was a vote, 51-38. So in a way you can say that the matter was settled then.
No, I'll tell you what. The question is, you just read through the debates. There is not a single speaker in defense of India, that this name of the country should be India. All of them say, no, Bharat is the correct thing, for various reasons. One is Puranas, go to Vishnu Purana, go to Vayu Purana, etc., etc. So many things.
I think there was also, in terms of civilizational words, people had different ideas. Someone said Bharatvarsh, some said Hind,
yes.
If I am not wrong. So, you know, you had Hind, you had Bharat, you had Bharatvarsh.
Hindustan.
Somebody
else said Bharat bracket India.
Bharat bracket India. So
name
even
of the
there
country
you
is
had multiple
Bharat
suggestions.
No, multiple suggestions, but all centering around Bharat.
Okay.
You see, in the Constituent Assembly, the first time this cropped up was 15 November 1948. Again, for a brief moment on 17th November 1948. And it was put off.
Okay.
It was put off because Anant Shainam Iyengar saw that there were a lot of amendments, all amendments suggesting Bharat, this, that, put Bharat before India and so on. So he said, no, we must put this off. Otherwise, this is too contentious and we will just get bogged down by this. So eventually, This was debated on 18th September 1949, and finally that Article 1 bracket 1 was passed.
Okay. Now, see, a change in the name of the country resolves certain things. For example, when Persia became Iran, the whole idea was the Persia is part of the larger entity called Iran, because you have a number of other ethnicities. Yeah. You have Azaris, you have other people, you have Arabs, you have Sunnis in Iran, or even Burma to Myanmar, though Burma and Myanmar are interchangeable, but this still went for Myanmar. Now, in our context, what does the change signify? Because in Hindi it is Bharat ke Rashtrapati, and in English it is India's president.
Correct. No, the other thing, look at most of our Indian languages. What do they call this country? They call it Bharat. In most of the Indian languages, they don't call this country as India. They call it Bharat. And of course, Hindi, any Hindi translation of the English text will always refer to our country as Bharat. So what is happening is, these two words or names have been in a sense interchangeable over the last 75 years, and there was, in my view, overwhelming support for Bharat. In fact, Ambedkar in that debate said, listen, we had intense debate on this, and it was very difficult for us to resolve this as to whether Bharat should come ahead of India. Somewhere he makes a reference.
In fact, Ambedkar was even getting irritated. He was prompting members that there are other important things lined up for debate.
That is because the members were talking about this civilizational connect. Now, the other point I will make as to why the name of the country should be Bharat. Throughout the Islamic invasions, you go back 1000 years, and then British colonial rule 200 years, and then come to Lord Macaulay and his plan to teach the natives English language and English mores and manners. Along with that, what they did was to disconnect this population from its civilizational past, from its cultural roots. I think that was done systematically through education, through schools, whatever. In fact, I have myself studied in convent schools and I have some idea of this, but that is for a later day to talk about that. But I must tell you that this was done systematically and to a point where actually the Sanatana Dharma, or those who are adherents of that, and the original majority people of this country began to detest and loathe their own dharma, their own civilization. It had come to that point. That is why in today's context it is very important to reconnect. And when I see Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the last 9 years, everything he does is towards reconnecting. वो तार दोबारा जोड़ने का काम. Consistently on various decisions he takes. If you see whether it's the name of the G20, where the G20 convention was held, Bharat Mandapam, or whatever, the new Parliament House, just the architecture, aesthetics.
You see,
look at anything that he does.
If it is an attempt to reconnect, then it should have a sort of a popular demand. This came through such an executive decision. It didn't come through a popular pressure. I mean to say, sort of a movement or sort of a campaign. It came as a surprise.
Sometimes, actually, sometimes somebody, that is what political leadership is all about, isn't it? To give a lead. When you give that lead, you also make people think, what is this name that we have accepted all these years? What is this name? Who gave this name to us? Should we not reconsider this? So that debate is on now. In my view, this is very, very important. It's just a matter, it's also a question of self-respect and assertion of a nation. We have to reconnect. Now Sri Lanka, Ceylon,
But
why
I
did it
understand,
become
but Suryaji, a lot of people would say that you are also contesting the, I will not use the word consensus in the Constituent Assembly, because a lot of things had no consensus. They find it, all of them are parked in the directive principles in our Constitution.
Correct.
But this had a popular vote, and more people voted for India. And 38 vote, it's like whatever. It's like a vote on whether Spanish should be the language of America or English. There was a vote.
No, the vote you are talking about, I think it was on H.V. Kamath's amendment.
Correct.
Where he said, Bharat, which is known as India in the English language. He wanted that.
Correct.
So, there the vote was 51 against that and 38 in favor.
Yes.
But in the entire debate, there was nobody who supported that. Ambedkar was sitting there, and I will tell you, at some point of time in the debates, you can see that when you read the Constituent Assembly debates. Sometimes, Dr. Ambedkar gets exasperated because the debates are just going on and on and on. And he once tells the chairman, are we to sit here and listen to all this? Meaning about Vishnu Purana, about this, that. You see, he gets very restless. And because he also explains, it took him and the other members of the committee many hours to come to this formulation, India, that is Bharat. So he just wanted that to be passed and be done with.
Suryaji, how is it possible without political consensus? Can you change the name of a country, a big democracy like India, without building consensus and only through a legislative action, sir?
No, for example, if you look at the composition of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, the way they are composed today, and you have so many parties, over 40 political parties represent the people of this country in our parliament. There is so much of diversity, political diversity. When this is put before them, before those assemblies, and if those assemblies agree to whatever change is proposed, then that is what consensus is all about. And more important, let me tell you that I don't agree that this is a change at all. India, that is
I'll ask you a second. For example, Narasimha Rao made the law, except Babri Masjid.
Yeah,
it was a law. Lot of
Correct.
people agreed. A democratically elected government made a law.
Yes.
But a lot of people say that law can be repealed also, because today it does not have a consensus. A lot of people in North India feel that, you cannot brush aside what about Mathura and Kashi Vishwanath temple.
Yes.
So the consensus matter. So the law loses its credibility, which was made by Narasimha Rao, which created the exception of Ayodhya and Babri Masjid. Today, because people believe that those two should also be accommodated. Are you getting my argument, sir?
No, I have got your argument. I will respond to that.
Sir.
Please read a very famous quote of Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson. He said, and this is very critical, he said, every generation is a nation. In the context of the right to amend the Constitution. We have amended our Constitution 105 times. Some people may laugh at it and say, what is this? How many times do you amend your Constitution? I will say, sir, we are the most diverse society in the world. We are the most vibrant democracy in the world. And we have survived. The unity, integrity of India has been intact simply because we have given ourselves the right to amend our Constitution. And those amendments have come with change, with time, and whenever needed. So, as Jefferson said, every generation is a nation. So, if you talk of Narasimha Rao's law, and now one generation has gone by, India may be thinking anew. Another thing I will tell you, throughout the Nehruvian phase, I am sorry to say this, that what Macaulay did, what the British did, what the colonial masters did, we are all aware of that. But why did that persist in the Nehruvian India for 50, 60 years? Why did it persist? Why didn't we regain our strength as Bharat? Why? Why didn't we assert our Bharatiyata after 15th August 1947? This all continued, and you know that pejorative term, Macaulay Putras. all these Macaulay Putras who came out of convents, okay, who had a disconnect with this country and civilization
But
totally.
even today, a large majority of our elites are convent educated.
That is true, sir. But I think with passage of time, I hope that this syllabus also will undergo change so that the Macaulay Putras also get connected with their civilizational past and those roots. It is very, very critical.
Is the change in the name of the country only way to reconnect with your culture?
No, it is just one of them. There are so many other elements. I can't immediately recall, but if you just look at 9 years
So
of
you are
Narendra
saying that
Modi.
this is possible by a single act of legislative act, constitutional amendment?
That is, if you want to change the name. My view is, actually, where is the change? India, that is Bharat. The way I read it is, actually the emphasis is on Bharat. We are Bharat. In all our languages, we are Bharat. So what is the change?
Let me ask you a value neutral question.
Yeah.
What is this, I will not use the word obsession, but what is this urge on part of powerful prime ministers to place words? Prime Minister Modi has not taken any position on it. He has it's just through an executive direction that it has become part of the vocabulary. Anyway, it is part of the vocabulary, it is there. Bharat ke Rashtrapati, Hindi mein, or India mein, India ke President. Indira Gandhi in a dictatorial fashion during emergency inserted secular and socialist, and it stays with us.
You see, whether...
Doesn't it? It stays with us. Undemocratic act.
No. Morarji Desai government could have easily knocked that off in the 44th Amendment, but did not, because there are certain things in the 42nd Amendment which were not bad. There were certain things which were terrible, and that had to be knocked out. There were certain good elements also. So that is how these successor government viewed it. For example, you decide that, okay, to be a secular socialist republic.
But Indira Gandhi, by inserting the word, created a controversy around secularist. In the politics of 80s, I as a child, for the first time heard a word called pseudo-secular when Advani ji used to give his speech.
Correct.
I'm born in 70s. Before that, you have no reference to pseudo-secular as a controversial issue. But in the 80s became because of Indira Gandhi. She made the secular word controversial. And today, we are debating India and Bharat, which was very normal for me. Bharat mera desh, Bharat varsh ke nivasi, India ka citizen.
No, it's just a question of transposing, putting Bharat ahead of India, that's all. The constitution already says India, that is Bharat.
Yes.
So it is just a question of flipping it. As it is, we have flipped it in our Indian languages, including Hindi. So now my point is, actually there is no change. It's not as if we are now inventing some new word for this country. We are just calling ourselves that we called ourselves 5,000 years ago. Are we
missing the real import of the change which Prime Minister wants to introduce?
Which is?
India, that is a union of states. But I don't think Bharat was a union of state. Bharat is a civilizational value.
Yeah, that is true.
It's a unit. Bhartiyata is one unit.
Yeah.
So do you think that when you say Bharat, you principally take a position, it's not only about being a union of states. It's a civilizational entity.
No, sir. Till the best of my understanding, the current debate is just on India and Bharat. It has not gone to the other parts of Article 1 bracket 1, that it's a union of states.
The opposition keeps on saying that.
But it's a union of states from a constitutional point of view.
Correct.
The constitution defines it that way, and we have lived that life over the last 75 years.
But Bhartiyata is not a union of states. Bhartiyata is a soch.
No, that is true. But I don't think that is in conflict with this at all, because Bharat, can you ever think of Bharat in a, for example,
you ask me, I'll tell you. I think being Bharati is a state of mind. If you ask me, my answer would be it's a state of mind. It's how you are composed.
Yeah, no. For me to be a Bharatiya means to be at peace and in harmony with diversity. That is the first starting point of Bharatiyata. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. Being at peace with diversity. I will challenge anybody if you can produce another society in the world, which 6,000 years ago.
A lot of people would say that there is overemphasis on diversity, unity in diversity. Why can't be diversity in unity?
Why can't there be?
There is unity in diversity. It's an overemphasis. I'm putting it around. Diversity in unity. And I prioritize unity.
All right, there is no. Is there a conflict between the two?
No, but the first one, people make virtue of the first one.
No, but the point is, look at the world around. Look at our own constitution. In fact, some other day we must discuss that. In my view, the basket of fundamental rights that are available to religious and linguistic minorities in India is simply not there in any other constitution in the world. I will say it with a great amount of emphasis and assertion. It's simply not there, sir. From Article 14, equality before law. Article 15, there shall be no discrimination. Article 19, all the freedoms we have. Then you come 25, 26, the right to profess, practice, and you won't believe it, propagate religion. Please show me another constitution in the world which gives you propagation as a fundamental right. And then Article 26, your right to have your own religious institutions. 29 and 30, which talk of script culture, for every minority, whether linguistic or religious, to preserve its own script and culture and to maintain institutions for that purpose. I mean, where does this come from? If you have this in your constitution today, I will say you have it in the constitution because 6,000 years ago, our forefathers said, Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. Our forefathers said, Vasudhaiva kutumbakam. That is, how does it begin? Ayam niji paroveti ganana lagu chetasam. Udara charitanam tu vasudhaiva kutumbakam. This is mine, that is yours, is the thinking of a small mind. Udara charitanam, if you are a large-hearted person, the whole world is your family. I'm talking of concepts which are 4,000, 6,000 years. Can't you see that trickle down? Your constitution is breathing that from the first article to the last. So that is why when people say, where minorities are being discriminated in India, where is minority rights in India? I find it to be absolutely disgraceful for any Indian to say that. What are you talking of? Show me another constitution in the world which has these kind of basket of rights for minorities. I have studied 80 constitutions because Freedom House and many others challenged us, challenged our democratic credentials, and I had to go into that aspect. But what I'm saying is, these are, so what do you mean by Bharat? By Bharat I mean all this. By Bharat I mean that connect. That harmony with diversity is very, very central to our existence. That is why over 75 years, not that there haven't been social tensions and all that in this country. Which country doesn't have that? But look at our acceptance of diversity in our day-to-day life.
Okay. So coming back to the issue of Bharat, yes. You think that it's possible in the next coming session?
It is possible. Now, for example, they have called a special session.
Yes.
So that must have been called for some special reason.
Okay.
Secondly, I really do not know what the government has in mind in terms of the legislative part of it.
Okay.
I really do not know. But the way they have triggered this, it is quite clear that they now want the country to be known through its civilizational roots rather than the name given to it by some foreign.
Opposition says it's been triggered because they named Opposition India.
That is simple. I will not go along with that for this reason, that Mr. Modi has been on this line for the last 9 years. This I.N. whatever is a recent invention. why don't you look at Prime Minister Modi's policies over the last 9 years? All of them are directed towards this. This didn't spring up all of a sudden. And secondly, I have reasons to believe that this idea of Bharat as against India was something which was on this government's mind for several years now. They were just waiting for, to get their arguments in place, to choose the time to do that, and so on and so forth. So possibly they will do it in this session. I have no idea.
So when we talk about Bharat, it requires legislative action. Now Prime Minister is also talking about one nation, one poll. It can also be done through legislative action. But both require some sort of a political consensus.
No, one nation, one poll is very, very complicated. You have constitutional amendments, you have amendments to the Representative People's Act. It's very, very complex. But one thing I will tell you, having watched Prime Minister Modi over the years, he is one Prime Minister who will take on the most complex issues head on. If you see his decision on Kashmir, Article 370, if you see his decision on some other matters, which most Prime Ministers would just throw their hands up and say, this is not doable, he will just take it head on. So one nation, one election, I am of the view that this year after year with 3-4 states going to polls, some four states are going to polls now. Next year I think it is 5. I was just looking at the list from Election Commission, and the year after that some more. Never ending. And now the Election Commission enforces code of conduct very strictly. So as a result, governance is hit. 3 months in a year, neither state government nor central government can take any policy decisions or do anything. This is a terrible situation. Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi is one Prime Minister I have seen who is not afraid of taking on a very complex issue. He has to build consensus among parties. As I said, there are over 40 political parties in our parliament. He has to build that consensus and bring that about. He is suggesting this, he wants to push it, and it's very complex. We have our former President Kovindji heading that committee, and let us see what that committee's report will be and so on.
And the last question to you, sir. Going through the template of the Constituent Assembly debate on Bharat, do you think it was a missed opportunity?
Yes, it was a missed opportunity. You see, I think
can you read some portion of it?
Yes, I'll.
Please.
I think, Jawaharlal Nehru, and some of the people who liked his idea of India, let's say, influenced that final vote or whatever it is. But otherwise, the heart and soul of the Constituent Assembly was in favor of Bharat. For example, 18 September 49, when the debate took place fully, you see, you find H.V. Kamath. He says, Bharat, or in the English language, India. As I told you, he took the example of the Irish constitution and said, why don't we word it this way? In fact, Kamalapati Tripathi also favored this. And then H.V. Kamath said, India, that is Bharat, is rather clumsy, and the drafting committee has tripped on this question. Then you have B.M. Gupta. He supported the idea of it being called Bharat. Dr. Ambedkar intervened to say there was a long debate in drafting committee and it was not possible to decide as to whether Bharat should be used after the word India. Okay. Ram Sahai. In all our religious scriptures and in Hindi literature, the name is Bharat. Seth Govindas, Vishnu Purana, Brahma Purana, Human Song, all of them spoke of Bharat. And India is a name given to us by foreigners. Then I will come to Kamalapati Tripathi's full quote afterwards, but there are one or two other things I will tell you. The names that have, different countries which have changed their names. You know what the Turkish president who was here the other day, what he said when the name of Turkey was changed to Turkey, he said, we are reconnecting with our civilization and culture. This is exactly what we are saying. This is what the president of Turkey has said while effecting that change. Secondly, it's not as if everything is India. Bharat Petroleum, Bharat Electronics. In the Nehru era, Bharat BEL, Bharat Electronics, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, BHEL, Bharat Earth Movers Limited, BEML. Since I come from Bangalore, I know all these public sector undertakings. Nehru put all of them there so that they are safe and far away from Pakistan and China. And then Bharat Sanchar Nigam. Okay, apart from this, Rajiv Gandhi said, Mera Bharat Mahan. Rahul Gandhi said, Bharat Jodo Yatra. The one who did a Bharat Jodo Yatra is troubled by the name of India being Bharat. I am unable to understand. And as you are aware, the Sankalpa for a Hindu, when you offer prayers, Jambu Dvipe, Bharatavarshe, Bharatakande, Asmin Vartamane, that is, we describe our geography, then we describe ourselves, and then we start the prayers. I will now come to Kamalapati Tripathi. This quote from Kamalapati Tripathi is the clincher actually, whether as to what should be the name of our country and why it should be named Bharat. When a country is in bondage, it loses its soul. During its slavery, over 1,000 years, our country too lost everything. We lost our culture, we lost our history, we lost our prestige, we lost our humanity, we lost our self-respect, we lost our soul, and indeed we lost our form and name. Today, after remaining in bondage for 1,000 years, this free country will regain its name, and we do hope it will regain its inner consciousness and external form, and will begin to act under the inspiration of its soul, which had been so far in deep sleep. It will indeed regain its prestige in the world. He is saying this in the context of the word Bharat appearing there. But actually this para can be read today if eventually you change it completely to Bharat. You see that this country, its soul which was in deep sleep, it will indeed regain its prestige in the world. Sir, I am enamored of the historic name Bharat. Even the mere uttering of the word conjures before us by a stroke of magic the picture of cultured life of the centuries that have gone by. In my opinion, there is no other country in the world which has such a history, such a culture, such a name, whose age is counted in millennia as our country has. There is no country in the world that has been able to preserve its name and genius even after undergoing that amount of repression, insults, prolonged slavery that our country has had to pass through. Even after thousands of years, our country is still known as Bharat. Since Vedic times, the name has been appearing in our literature, etc. The last point. For us, the name is full of sacred remembrances. This is very important, the words of Kamalapati Tripathi, which everyone talks of. This name is full of sacred remembrances. The moment we pronounce this name, the picture of our ancient history and ancient glory and culture come to our minds. When we pronounce this word, we are reminded of the words of Lord Krishna and Lord Buddha, Shankaracharya and Bhagwan Ram. By the inclusion of the word Bharat and by accepting it, we shall be able to give to this country a form and give back to it its lost soul, and we shall be able to protect it also. Bharat will be a great nation and will be able to serve humanity on the worldwide scale. Now, when I read Kamalapati Tripathi in 1949, it sounds absolutely prophetic. After our Chandrayaan-3 landing, our G20 and whatever progress this country has achieved over the last 75 years. You know, from the day when our constitution makers were drafting the constitution, look at the distance we have covered, where we are today as a nation. This is, Kamalapati Tripathi is saying that one day you will be there. I think we are on that track. And we are just a few steps away from reaching.
Only thing I would say, the conclusion of this interview is that it entirely depends how the special session pans out, whether it's a ruse, whether it's a decision he has taken to actually push through the special session. I think we'll have to wait through it, but I think it's a debate. I think it's a position which will which will be defining and will not go uncontested. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Gautam Adani, one of the richest men in the world, or a business honcho, accused of manipulating the market.
अदानी जी 609 नंबर से दूसरे नंबर तक कैसे पहुंचे? सिर्फ एक सवाल पूछा, नरेंद्र मोदी जी, आपका अदानी जी से रिश्ता क्या है?
He has given the space, the railways, the airport, which he has no experience also. So the country's interest has been compromised.
Government has been very clearly supporting few industrial groups, including Adani's industrial group.
Target Adani, streaming now.
मैं इस वक्त इराक़ के करबला शहर में मौजूद हूँ। इराक़ का करबला शहर, जिसके बारे में सुना शायद हो आपने बहुत बार, जब भी आपने शिया समुदाय से जुड़े हुए, उनके मातम से जुड़े हुए, उनके तकलीफ़ से जुड़े हुए किसी भी बात को सुना होगा तो आपने करबला शहर का जिक्र ज़रूर सुना होगा। तो करबला शहर की सिग्निफिकेंस शियाओं के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा है, लेकिन इस शहर की सिग्निफिकेंस पूरी दुनिया के लिए, समाज के लिए क्या है, और यहाँ क्यों इस वक्त बड़ी तादाद में सिर्फ शिया ही नहीं, पूरी दुनिया से बहुत तमाम